Hello, and welcome to the fifth episode of this series of tips and tricks. Um, this episode is going to be all about carving out the actual shape of our key fob. So far, we only have the basic surfaces, and it's a rather boxy design. So it's all going to be about one tool called Surface Fillet. So if we look at what we have here, put some color to it. Uh, we have the top surface and the rail surfaces around it, or the skin surfaces around it. What we need to do is, if I bring on the canvas plane and have a look at the top view, we need to start by rounding off these corners of the shape. Same goes for this corner right here. And the beauty of using surface fillet is that we do not need to trim the surfaces before we start rounding them off. When you use a round tool, the surfaces need to be trimmed first. So we are going to keep them oversized and let the surface fillet tool take care of the trimming. So if we start with this corner up here, I'm going to bring up the surface fillet tool, and you find it under surfaces, multi-surface fillet, and also click the options box. And it's really simple to use. You click on one surface and then on the other surface, and make sure the arrows point towards the center of the radius. In this case, we want them this way inwards. You can always flip them by clicking on them like so. And if we check the box auto update, it will build a surface here. Obviously, this radius is way too small for our purposes, but we can update that by changing the parameters here in the surface fillet control. First of all, we have a few different construction types. We're going to go into that in a bit. Also, section type. We have tangent. First of all, we have a chamfer that simply puts a sharp chamfer on or between the surfaces. Second is circular. Let's bring up that radius right now to something that at least is close. This is a circular radius, which is in our case is not going to work to catch this shape we're looking for right here. Then we have tangent, and also which gives it a bit of a smoother transition between the radius and the main surfaces. And we also have G2 curvature. I'm not going to go into exactly what that means, but what it means is that the transition between the surfaces will be very, very smooth, and we'll see that in a minute. So let's set that to G2 curvature and bring up the radius as far as we can. And oh yeah, 80 seems to be okay-ish. But still, I would like to increase that slightly more to see if we can follow our shape a little better. So let's bring it up to 85 and see what that does. There we go. It looks rather nice. So if we go to the perspective view and have a look at what we got. First of all, you can notice now that the basic surfaces have been trimmed. So we don't need to worry about that. Also, I'd like to uh, bring on some shading to our created surfaces. So if we pick those two and that one and shade it with a shiny shader, you can't really tell where I'm going to toggle the model as well. You can't really tell where the radius begins and the basic surface ends on this one. Let's bring on an even shinier shader down here in the control panel. Uh, where is it? Oh, there. It's set on diffuse, but we could go to showroom and get a reflective highlight. And you can see that it's super smooth here in the transition between the surfaces. Bring back the model. This is a transition area. You might wonder what it would look like if we had chosen a different setting on the surface fillet. So let's do that. Query edit, click on the surface, bring us back to the creation mode. So let's set that to tangent, for instance. And you can immediately see on that reflective highlight that it's not as nice as the curvature. You can see almost see a dark shadow going in this direction here. And you can also see that the reflection is broken compared to curvature, which is perfectly smooth. If we would have made it a circular radius, well, you can clearly see that the reflection is broken here and also a kind of a shadow going down here. So I'm quite happy with using curvature here. Also, it captures the outline from our canvas plane in a nice way. So this is what we were looking for. Let's go ahead and try and do it in the other end as well. So I go next, click on one surface, click on the other surface, unclick, and then click auto update. And I get nothing. Why is that? I'm guessing this radius is way too big for it to be able to create that radius right here. So I'm going to bring it down and see what that, oh, there we go. We have something. And let's go to the top view and see what it looks like. Not really what we wanted. You can see there is a gap here, clear gap. And I can't really make that center radius any bigger. So I'm going to try something else, a different setting. It says here radius, but I can also go for chord. And what that means is that the distance between this curve here, where the radius begins, and this curve here is set to a value. In this case, only 10 millimeters. But if I increase that, I can set the distance between these two curves to a fixed value. And I'm up at 200 now. Let's maximize it to 210 and see what that does. And go back to the top view. It looks better, but I still have a tiny gap here. And there's another parameter that I can play around with called the form factor. So I'm going to bring that up slightly and see what that does to my surface. And there we go. 0.7, 0.8 seem to have captured our shape in a good way. Let's go to the perspective view and have a look at the reflections that we have. I go next. And as you can see, it's perfectly smooth in the transition area here. Looking rather nice, isn't it? You can play around with this tool and all the different settings until you find something that suits your need when you model this one. Time now to trim off the surfaces and see what this really looks like. And we do that by, first of all, pick nothing. We turn off the shading, intersecting this surface with all of these surfaces we have here. So I go pick surface and then intersect, middle button on my marquee menu, and intersect. And then I start clicking on these surfaces right here. Finally, that one. And I can now trim all of these surfaces. So I go trim, click on my top surface, area to keep, and spacebar, and repeat. Like so on that one as well. There we go. So let's have a look. Okay. So we now have our big rounded corners. Only thing remaining now for this episode is to also round off this edge right here with surface fillet as our tool. So let's go to surfaces, multi-surface fillet, and the options box there. In this case, it's going to be a rather small radius here, so we don't need to have that curvature setting. So we could probably settle with tangent, and we need to bring down that radius. It's probably, when I look at the actual key here, around a radius of 2 millimeters or so. In our case, with scale 10 to 1, that would be around probably quarter length. Hang on, let's set that to radius. Around 20 millimeters. Let's try that. And I click on, first of all, that surface, and then I go with that one, that one, that one, that one, and finally that one. And you can see that it figures out by itself by coloring the surfaces, which goes against which here. So all of these are colored yellow, and the top surface is pink. So I unclick and click auto update. Let's see what that does. And look at that. A beautiful, round, trimmed, and ready to go. I'm going to turn off the canvas plane so we can clearly see it. And it's looking rather nice, isn't it? You go ahead and try that, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.